On February 3rd, 1998, 20 people died when a cable car situated near the ski resort town of Cavallisi, Italy, plummeted to the ground from 260 feet. It was caused when a United States military aircraft, which was flying excessively fast and too low during a low-altitude training mission, ultimately severed the cable that supported the cable car as it was descending from Mount Cermis. The pilot, Captain Richard J. Ashby, and his navigator, Captain Joseph Schweitzer, were ultimately deemed not guilty of involuntary manslaughter and negligent homicide for their roles in the disaster. However, they were found guilty of obstruction of justice upon being found to have destroyed camcorder footage recorded from the plane's cockpit. Because Schweitzer destroyed the videotape containing the footage, this recording will never be recovered. In 2009, a website called thisman.org started to make its way around the internet. On the website, it states that in January of 2006, in New York, the patient of a well-known psychiatrist draws the face of a man that has repeatedly appeared in his dreams. Further adding to the lore of this man, the website states that from 2006 until today, at least 2,000 people have claimed to have seen this man in their dreams, in many cities all over the world. On May 6, 2010, it was revealed that the website was a hoax, and that a film based on this man was in production by Brian Bertino, directing and writing the film. After that announcement, no updates about the film were ever made. No actors or actresses were ever named for the project. The World Meeting of Families is a gathering of the Roman Catholic Church that has occurred every 3 years since 1994. It is organized to promote the pastoral care of families, protect their rights and dignity in the church and in civil society, so that they may be ever more able to fulfill their duties. It is the biggest gathering of Catholic families in the world. The Fourth World Meeting of Families was held on January 22nd through the 26th in 2003. Pope John Paul II made an address about the meeting. It is said that the radio segment concludes with the statement, quote, January 22nd to 26th, 2003, love begins with your family. In the TV segment, it ends with the black screen and the logo of Fourth World Meeting of Families with the above-mentioned date. The TV and radio ads are known for their unsettling plot featuring domestic abuse. The segment begins with the sound of footsteps and a male voiceover saying, "This is the sound of the steps of shoes made by Italian leather," followed by the mother crying after being slapped with the shoe, with the male voiceover saying, "This is the sound of your mother who is a victim of domestic violence." Across the Border is a 1914 silent Mexican Revolution Western film produced by the Colorado Motion Picture Company. Directed by Otis B. Thayer, it starred Edmund Cobb and Curly Smith, a Texas Rangers lieutenant who encounters a gun smuggling operation across the U.S.-Mexican border and sets out to stop the rebellion from subsequently receiving powerful American weaponry and ammunition. However, the film is most infamous for a fatal filming accident which claimed the lives of lead actress Grace McHugh and cameraman Owen Carter. Footage of this tragic incident was confiscated by the Colorado Motion Picture Company, and it is suspected to have deteriorated or been destroyed over time. Albert Fish is a notorious American serial killer and cannibal known for the murders of many children. His actions led to him being branded as the most vicious child slayer in criminal history by the New York Daily Mirror. He was found guilty for kidnapping and murdering and sentenced to death by electric chair, which was carried out on the 16th of January in 1936. A few hours before his execution, Fish wrote several pages of notes that ultimately established his final statement, which his lawyer, James Dempsey, refused to release publicly. While Fish's letters confessing to the murders of Gaffney and Bud emphasized his twisted mind can be easily viewed online, his attorney revealed Fish had also written several notes in the hours leading up to his execution. Little is known about the notes' contents, as Dempsey refused to release them, and they have remained locked away until present day. The Werewolf is a silent 1913 film directed by Henry McRae and released by Universal Studios, and based on the short story The Werewolves from 1898 by Henry Bogrand. It is thought to be the first ever feature film about a werewolf, and it is the first film in the Universal Monsters series. No copies of the film are known to exist, however, as all copies were destroyed in forgotten wardrobe fires at Universal Studios. On Sunday, April 10th, 2005, the Los Angeles Avengers hosted the New York Dragons in a Week 11 Arena Football League matchup at Staples Center in Los Angeles, California, with approximately 11,000 spectators in attendance. This game would go down in infamy as Al Lucas, a lineman for the Avengers, tackled Dragons return man Corey Johnson during a kickoff around 10:17 in the first quarter. Johnson's knee hit Lucas's helmet, and Lucas's head would be then hit by blocker Mike Horacek's leg, with other players forming a pit during the play. All of these factors combined crushed Lucas's neck and spinal cord, leading to an immediate loss of consciousness. The Wizard is a 1927 horror film loosely based on the 1911 novel Balaloo. It was directed by Richard Rasson and distributed by the Fox Film Corporation. It's best known for being one of the most sought-after silent films, along with London After Midnight. The film is about a professor named Paul, whose son was convicted and sentenced to death at the gallows for a murder he didn't commit. He then seeks revenge by creating an ape-like creature named Balao to kill his adversaries. Catching the attention of a detective named Murphy and a newspaper reporter named Stanley Gordon, they both investigate and save the two intended victims, being Judge Webster and his daughter, from murder. Speaking of, London After Midnight is a 1927 silent horror mystery film written by Todd Browning and starring Lon Chaney. The film is an adaptation of The Hypnotist, written by Browning as well. It is also one of the last major films to star Lon Chaney before his death on August 26, 1930. A remake of the film was produced by Browning in 1935, titled The Mark of the Vampire. The film follows Sir Roger Belfour, the head of a luxurious mansion, who is found dead alongside a suicide note. Professor Edward Burke, played by Chaney, is placed in charge of investigating the incident. Sir James Hamlin, Belfour's neighbor, was the last to see him alive. Naturally, Burke questions him and Belfour's butler, Williams. Burke's questioning leads him to suspect Arthur Hibbs, Hamlin's nephew, is the murderer. 5 years later, the mansion has become dilapidated and is now a subject of ill omen. The mansion is now occupied by an eccentric old man who goes by the name of Roger Belfour and a ghostly woman renting from Hamlin. Professor Burke is once again drawn to the house to investigate stories of vampires residing within. Unbeknownst to the others, the man is actually Burke in disguise. With the use of hypnosis and a fake setup of vampires, Burke tricks Hamlin into revealing that he was the one who murdered Sir Roger Belfour 5 years previously. Silent Hills was a canceled horror game meant as a new installment of the Silent Hill series. The game was announced back in 2012 alongside Police Knots and various other games. On August 12, 2014, a teaser game was released on the PlayStation Store under the pseudonym 77-80s Studio. It was later revealed at the end of the game as the official teaser for a new Silent Hill game. The demo, released in 2014, featured the player wandering around a strange house with no immediate references to Silent Hill. As the player transverses through the game, many odd and frightening events start to unravel, such as a strange cryptic dialogue, the player appearing in the same rooms, the spirit of a pregnant female named Lisa that attacks you, and so on. After completing the game, the player sees the protagonist wake up in Silent Hill, with the title card, Silent Hills, appearing afterwards. Baby Shaker was a controversial game released on the App Store in 2009 for only 99 cents. As the game suggests, the game has you shake your iPhone to stop a crying infant until 2 X marks appear on their eyes. Once both the media and public became aware of the app's existence, people were outraged. Many child advocacy groups accused the app of both making fun of and glorifying shaken baby syndrome, a form of brain injury that occurs when a baby or a toddler is shaken. Several people even contacted Apple to remove the app, which they eventually did. One day later, Apple pulled Baby Shaker from the App Store. The app would reappear the next day before being taken down again that afternoon. This time, it was permanent. On July 6, 1898, Edward Heinsohn, who was convicted of criminal assault on a 14-year-old girl, was executed via hanging at a county jail yard in Jacksonville, Florida. His hanging was recorded by the American Mutoscope Company and distributed as an execution by hanging, becoming the second earliest known instance of a filmed legitimate execution. At least one complete mutoscope reel of the film still exists. On the 20th of September 2015, live auctioneers conducted a Potter & Potter Auctions public bidding of the reel, estimating its value to be around $1,500 to $2,500. The copy was eventually sold for $3,600 to a private collector, making it one of the most expensive mutoscope reels sold on the website. No other copies are believed to exist, and no footage is publicly available. Cannibal Holocaust was a controversial Italian film from 1980. The film tells the story of a missing documentary crew that was filming cannibal tribes in the Amazon. The film aroused a great deal of controversy, not only due to its graphic violence, but due to the on-screen killings of live animals and snuff film allegations that managed to land the film's director in jail on obscenity charges and possible murder. Among the many gruesome scenes in the film, another one was scripted that is commonly dubbed the piranha scene. In the scene, a single warrior injured in battle was to have his leg amputated by warriors of the Yanomamo tribe. The tribe would then tie the warrior to a log and lower him into the piranha-infested waters, slowly being eaten alive by the fearsome fish. Filming for the scene did commence, but was never completed due to the piranhas being difficult to control, and the film crew's underwater camera was malfunctioning. The scene was scrapped entirely, and only production stills exist of it. It was rumored that the scene was included in several obscure foreign video releases, but this was proven to be false. The whereabouts of the surviving footage, if any, is unknown. Leslie Van Houten is a convicted murderer most infamous for being a member of the Manson family, led by none other than Charles Manson. From August 9th through the 10th, 1969, Manson ordered the Tate LaBianca killings, with Van Houten being involved in the latter. Manson, Van Houten, and several other family members were convicted for these murders and sentenced initially to death on March 29, 1971, which was later reduced to a life sentence. Manson remained in prison until his death on November 19, 2017, while Van Houten was released on July 11, 2023, after more than 50 years in prison. Throughout his time incarcerated, Manson sent 3 letters to Van Houten, with Van Houten claiming that they were attempts at manipulating her. Based on Van Houten's statement, the letters most likely remain within the office of the institutional investigator. Whether they still exist or have since been destroyed is unknown. Based on their context, the chances of the letters being publicly released remain slim. Thus, the only person who can detail what was written in the letters is Van Houten herself. The Columbine Library audio refers to a 911 call placed by art teacher Patty Nielsen as she hid inside the library of Columbine High School during the shooting rampage on April 20th, 1999. While the first 5.5 minutes of the call have been released to the public, the rest of the audio is available in the form of a transcript. The call picked up the deaths of all 10 students who died in the library. Some can be heard begging for their lives. Since the shooting, families of the injured and deceased have strongly protested the release of the entire 911 call, fearing that it would inspire future copycats. The Crow is a 1994 action horror film starring the late Brandon Lee in his first and final lead performance. During production in 1993, Brandon Lee was on the set filming an action scene. In the middle of a stunt, a gun that was loaded with a blank cartridge suffered a malfunction. The spent blank casing from an earlier shot was jammed into the barrel. Upon using the gun again, the second blank went off and propelled the cartridge from the earlier shot forward, which hit Lee. He was rushed to the hospital and died later that day. His death was caught on camera and was allegedly destroyed under the insistence of the director. However, some of the cameramen claim otherwise, including one who even claimed to own a copy of the death footage. This footage has never been released or seen, and no legitimate stills from the footage have ever been found either, which suggests that these claims may be fake. On the 16th of October 2011, during lap 12 of the 2011 IndyCar World Championship, which was held at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, a multi-car crash occurred as the field attempted to negotiate Turn 1. Among those involved in the accident was Dan Weldon, who drove up Charlie Kimball's car and became airborne. He hit the catch fence cockpit first, with his head making contact with one of its poles. The impact resulted in him suffering fatal head injuries, which various clips of the crash are publicly available. Some of the onboard footage has been withheld from the public viewing, however. Daniel P. Dukes was the second person to be killed by Tilikum, the largest orca held in captivity. On July 6, 1999, he somehow bypassed security and snuck into SeaWorld Orlando. It is uncertain what his exact time of death was, but he decided to go skinny dipping in Tilikum's sleep tank. Tilikum then reportedly thrashed Dukes around in the tank and eventually killed him. The whale continued to play around with Duke's body until the following morning, when Tilikum was found parading Duke's lifeless body on his back. The whale had reportedly bitten off Duke's genitals, caused so many fatal injuries that autopsy reporters were dumbfounded as to what the actual cause of death was, and left his face in such bad condition that his funeral had to be held closed casket. It is possible that Duke's death may have been captured on security camera footage. However, SeaWorld has declined to confirm this. There are confirmed pictures of his body being carried around by the whale, taken by park employees for reference. However, the photographs and the surveillance footage, if it exists, have yet to surface, as these are more than likely being held by the FBI, never to be given out for official release. On June 5th, or 8th depending on who you ask, 1971, during a taping of the Dick Cavett Show, guest longevity and health guru Jerome Rodale suffered a fatal heart attack and was pronounced dead shortly after. Rumor has it that Cavett is still in possession of the master tape, and while this claim is likely true, it has never actually been verified by Cavett himself. Drowning Scene at Rockaway is the 1897 supposed actuality film produced by the International Film Company and released in July of 1897. It allegedly depicts a boating accident involving 4 occupants who ultimately drowned beneath the waves of Rockaway Beach in New York. The film's lost status and the International Film Company's hyperbole-filled synopsis make it difficult to determine whether the film depicted a real tragedy or was a fake designed to lure in unsuspecting viewers. On January 21st, 2000, MTV was taping a pilot for a new show called Dude, This Sucks. It was supposed to be an inverted talent competition where 2 team captains would each act out a performance featuring the bizarre talents of the contestants for 45 seconds. If at any time during the 45 seconds, one of the 3 judges thinks their act sucks, they smash down a hammer on their podium. This act is disqualified, and the entire audience screams out, "Dude, this sucks," as loud as they can. For one of the acts, some teenage girls were instructed by studio employees to stand out on stage in a certain place for a part of the show in which a pair of performers known as the Shower Rangers were to go through their routine. The girls didn't receive any information from the staff about what the performance would be or how they would be involved in it. The performers, the Shower Rangers, took the stage, dressed in scouting-type uniforms, and appeared to act out some kind of campfire scene. The Shower Rangers then turned their backsides to the audience, dropped their trousers, exposed their bare rear ends, and bent over and let fly with a shower of liquid excrement, spraying the unaware girls from head to foot. Apparently, the performers had dosed themselves with a powerful laxative prior to the performance. On the 1st of September 1996, Elmer Trett was competing in a Top Fuel motorcycle drag racing exhibition when he suddenly fell off of his bike while riding at 232 miles an hour. Trett hit a sand trap at high speeds, killing him instantly. It is known that footage of the fatal accident was captured. Trett's crash was only shown once on the Indianapolis Raceway's Park's big screen before it became locked away. The Columbine High School shooting occurred on April 20th, 1999, and killed 13 people while injuring many more. The 2 perpetrators were 2 seniors, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. Before the shootings occurred, Harris, an avid player of the video game Doom, was known to a few to create various Doom WADs. WAD is a file type that stands for Where's All the Data. According to page 7043 of the 11,000 pages Columbine report, Eric Harris was quoted as saying that he had created a level in Doom that was Columbine High School, leading some to falsely believe that Harris and Klebold were practicing the shooting in the WAD. No evidence has surfaced as of yet to confirm this. Even if it was, the WAD in question is currently lost and cannot be downloaded. The Exceptions, Episode 6, is an adult entertainment video produced by Brazzers and features August Ames. It is the final installment in Brazzers' The Exceptions online series. It is also August Ames's last known Brazzers video before her death. It was originally set for release on December 7th, 2017, but due to the suicide of August Ames 2 days prior, Brazzers decided to postpone the release of the video. No further update from Brazzers has been given to when this will be released, but it's unlikely to be officially released due to the controversy surrounding her suicide. Faces of Death is a Mondo film series. The first in the series was released in 1978, which showcased the multitude of ways humans and animals can perish, including from horrific accidents, murders, and executions. While the film does not contain legitimate videos of fatalities and aftermath scenes, a considerable proportion of the deaths were ultimately staged. However, according to editor Glenn Turner, the original version of Faces of Death consisted exclusively of graphic aftermath newsreel footage. For legal reasons, some legitimate clips were pulled from the final cut. Fake doomsday, also known as hoax doomsday, are names given to certain lost Filipino PSA about biblical end times prophecy, particularly that of the number of the beast. It is unknown who created the PSA, as well as their motives, though given the nature of the ad, it is likely to be from a fundamentalist Christian group. The ad starts with the word rapture, with a date on the bottom of the screen, with the picture of Jesus Christ resurrecting in the background. What follows is a slideshow of disturbing pictures during the Holocaust. Eyewitnesses described the people in the pictures are bald, pale, and skinny, with some of them being dragged by their necks. The numbers 666 with a black font and an off-white background, and what follows are photos of people with the number 666 on their forehead and the middle to the end part of the PSA. The PSA is said to end with a picture of Jesus Christ floating in Galilee. The PSA has an ominous background music and a voiceover with "This is a paid advertisement" shown on the bottom part of the ad throughout it. Fist of the North Star was a Japanese anime based on the manga of the same name. The anime, which had 152 episodes, ran from 1984 to 1988 in Japan and was produced by Toei Animation. Because of the manga's excessive violence, it was deemed unsuitable for Japanese television at the time, and as a result, the series was censored. Many of the original uncensored versions of the anime made their way to international broadcasts, but much of the uncensored anime remains lost. The 1981 cult classic horror movie Friday the 13th Part 2 was submitted a total of 8 times to the MPAA, being given each time an X rating. 48 seconds of violent shots were subsequently trimmed from the theatrical release. In addition, at least 2 scenes were shot but never included in the final cut of the film. Fans for a long time had clamored for a fully uncut version release, to which Paramount had stated that they had long since disposed of the negative, with the uncut version being believed to no longer exist. Game Over is a popular series of videos on YouTube that features characters from the Super Mario Bros. Series. The original video was created by YouTuber Cadbury King, and a sequel video was eventually created by YouTuber AdSolution, which continued the story. Parts 3 and 4, however, were created by Mr. Glitch 2000 shortly after the second episode was released, and both garnered several million hits on YouTube. Episode 4 shows Mario realizing that the castle is under attack by zombies and discovers his brother who has been severely injured. Mario attempts to keep him alive, but Luigi dies in his arms. Mario shortly climbs to the top of the tower and then commits suicide, unable to escape the zombies in the torment of losing his brother and the princess. On the 22nd of February 1950, middleweight boxers Georgie Small and Raymond Laverne Roach competed at the St. Nicholas Arena in Manhattan. The encounter ended in tragedy, as following a loss and knockout in the 10th round, Roach collapsed, later passing away from a subdural hemorrhage. The match was later televised live by CBS and became the first televised boxing match to end with a boxer's death. Ultimately, no footage of the encounter is publicly available, while its chances of resurfacing are slim due to the limited number of telerecordings made until videotape was perfected in the late 1950s. A photo of the encounter was published in the 6th March 1950 issue of Life magazine. In 2017, Kevin Spacey starred in Netflix's new upcoming film entitled Gore. The film was essentially a biopic on the life of American writer, screenwriter, and public intellectual Gore Vidal, the writer of what is recognized as the first major novel about a transgender woman, 1968's Myra Breckinridge. It would be the first feature film about their life after many documentaries had been made about them years prior. It would take place in Italy and would be filmed in Vidal's villa in Italy. The film was directed by Michael Hoffman and was produced by Andy Patterson and Netflix. Months later, the film was announced to be canceled due to the multiple allegations against actor Kevin Spacey were brought to light. Great Temptation was an Australian game show that aired on the 10 network from 1970 to 1975. It was hosted by Australian television veteran Tony Barber, and the show's format is very similar to Sale of the Century. While the show hasn't been on since its original airings, one episode hasn't been seen at all. According to the host of the show, no one was very sure at first because she actually won the game. I said, "Congratulations, Valerie, you've won," and then she passed out. There was a bit of confusion. We cleared the studio and the doctors were called. Taping had halted immediately. The episode was never completed and never aired due to the incident. No one knows what killed the contestant, and how much she won is also unknown. Groupie was a short film by Marilyn Manson in his first filmmaking effort ever. It was shot in a night between 1996 and 1998. The short was recorded at an actual house party that Manson was hosting and involved a stooge actress portraying a young groupie being made to do more and more perverse and disturbing things in front of Manson and his unknowing guests. Only 3 people are confirmed to have seen the short: Manson himself, Andy Dick, comedian friend of Manson's, and Manson's former manager, Tony Chula, the former 2 of whom discussed the short on a 2002 episode of Dinner for Five, and the latter of whom, after viewing the film, implored Manson to hide the masters, believing that if it were ever to be released, Manson would likely go to jail and/or end his career. On the 15th of April 1989, during the FA Cup semi-final match between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest, an excessive number of Liverpool fans were allowed by police to enter 2 already overcrowded Leppings Lane pens at Hillsborough Stadium. The decision resulted in a human crush that would ultimately claim the lives of 97 spectators and injure 766. This resulted in a decades-long battle between the Hillsborough Families Support Group for Justice, with a 2016 inquest declaring that the victims were unlawfully killed following a series of errors and extensive cover-up campaign by the South Yorkshire police officials. During these inquiries, revelations have emerged that CCTV tapes from Sheffield Wednesday's cameras were stolen on the day of the disaster. Additionally, key documents like minutes for the police planning meetings and original police control logbook have all been reportedly stolen. On the 17th of December, 1897, William Carr, a farm laborer who was convicted of murdering his 3-year-old daughter, Belle, was executed via hanging at the Clay County Courthouse in Liberty, Missouri. The hanging made a morbid piece of media history as it became the first legitimate execution to be filmed, with the footage used for the documentary film The Hanging of William Carr. Ultimately, despite the film's infamous and historic nature, no footage of The Hanging of William Carr has ever resurfaced. Around mid-2003, the IMDb page for Kelsey Grammer showed credits for 2 adult movies, Hotel Hooker and Filmed Female, both of which displayed release dates of question marks, which is a contemporary IMDb placeholder for unknown dates. While the films no longer appear anywhere on IMDb, including on Grammer's actor profile or his search results with adult content allowed, filmed female, but not hotel hooker, appears in two earliest available archived versions of Grammer's IMDb page dated back to 2003. Whether either of these movies ever existed, as named, is unknown, but highly doubtful. House of a Thousand Corpses is a cult classic horror film written and directed by musician Rob Zombie. Originally set to be released in 2000 by Universal Studios, the company shelved the film after fears that it would receive an NC-17 rating by the MPAA. It wouldn't be until 2003 when Lionsgate would release the film. In the process, scenes deemed too violent or graphic for an R rating were cut. While some of these scenes still made it into the movie, albeit censored, some sections and subplots were completely cut altogether. Scenes involving a character named Miss Bunny were completely cut from the film. One scene involved her character using dead animals as puppets to reenact famous movie moments, most notably the ending of Casablanca. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is a horror science fiction adventure game that was released in 1995 on PC, developed by Cyberdreams and Harlan Ellison. It is based on Harlan Ellison's short story of the same name. The game has a reputation for being disturbing and depressing, but there is evidence that shows it was even more so before its official release. One of the cuts features a puppy. It looks sickly, and the player seems to be able to bring it back to health. The commentators say that it is done by feeding it a human heart. Between 1963 and 1965, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley committed some of the most notorious crimes in British history. Dubbed the Moors Murders, the couple were convicted in 1966 of murdering 5 children, burying 4 of the victims in Saddleworth Moor. Brady would ultimately become Britain's longest-serving prisoner until his death on May 15, 2017. Since then, multiple attempts have been made to retrieve Brady's briefcases containing his personal documents, with speculation that the documents may reveal the location of Keith Bennett's bodies, which were one of his victims. These, however, have never been found. Cannibal Instinct is an unfinished novel by Mexican serial killer and cannibal Jose Luis Calva. According to an article online, the novel deals with subjects like cannibalism, sex, sadomasochism, and the consumption of feces. The article also states that there have been more texts, including poetry and similar writings, discovered at the scene, but this has not been officially confirmed. Due to the nature of the texts and the person who wrote them, it is unlikely that they will ever be officially released. It, also titled It Chapter 1, is a 2017 American horror film directed by Andy Muschietti and is the second adaptation of Stephen King's 1986 novel of the same name. There is one deleted scene from It that is yet to resurface in its entirety due to its content that proved far too disturbing, even for the R rating. In a September 2017 interview, Bill Skarsgård mentioned that he shot a flashback scene set during the 1600s. It was made to provide a backstory of what it is, where it came from, and that it was dormant for thousands of years. The scene was written for the 2016 draft of It by Gary Dauberman, though it does not appear in the film. In the summer of 1981, Issei Sagawa, a Japanese student studying abroad in France, invited Renee Hardevelt, a classmate, to his apartment for dinner and to study poetry. What culminated was Sagawa's intention to kill and consume Hardevelt's flesh. In addition to recording the whole butchery, Hardevelt's last words and the actual shot fired were caught on tape, Sagawa also shot a total of 39 photographs showing several stagings that he made with her corpse. The alleged tapes are presumed to be in possession of the French police. They are unlikely to surface for obvious reasons. Jen, full name being Jen Ketchison, was a Canadian YouTuber who rose to infamy due to her disturbing and highly controversial video advocating for pedophilia. Over the span of her time on YouTube, she made videos on self-improvement, guilt admission, vlogs, and channel updates. Later on, Jen's video would get taken down, and she would later delete all of her videos and her other social media accounts. The Jenny Jones Show was an American daytime talk show hosted by comedian, actress, and singer Jenny Jones. The show came to attention in 1995 when a taping of an episode called Same-Sex Crushes resulted in the murder of Scott Amger, and as a result, was never aired on television. Joanna Dennehy is a British spree killer who murdered 3 men and attempted to murder 2 others during a series of attacks carried out in March and April of 2013. Dennehy pleaded guilty to her crimes in November of 2013 and became the 3rd woman in Britain after Myra Hindley and Rosemary West to be given a whole life sentence. During her imprisonment, prison staff discovered that Dennehy had written an elaborate escape plot within her diary, resulting in her being put in solitary confinement for at least 2 years. The diary and its contents were confiscated and have never seen the light of day. Frederick and Rosemary West were an English couple who, between the 1960s and 1980s, murdered at least 12 young women and girls. Following their arrests in early 1994, Fred and Rose were charged with 12 and 10 counts of murder respectively. Fred unalived himself in custody on the 1st of January in 1995, while Rose was found guilty and became one of the only 4 women to date to receive whole life sentences. The Wests were infamous for their deviant sexual lives. During their time at 25 Cromwell Street, the pair frequently recorded adult videos, which primarily featured Rose engaging in consensual sexual intercourse with clients of both sexes. These tapes have not been made public. The Jeremy Kyle Show was a British daytime talk show hosted by broadcaster, journalist, and writer Jeremy Kyle. It typically involved Kyle and guests attempting to resolve significant personal issues, including DNA tests, cheating accusations, and addiction. Broadcast on ITV started in 2005 and ran for 17 seasons until it was suddenly canceled on May 15, 2019, following the self-inflicted death of a guest that appeared on the show a week prior. The episode featuring this guest was only known to be viewed by the coroner. The Reverend Jim Jones was an American cult leader and the founder of the People's Temple of the Disciples of Christ, which is best remembered for the mass poisoning orchestrated by Jones at the temple's communal compound in Guyana on November 18, 1978. In the aftermath, an audio tape purporting to capture Jonestown's final hours was claimed to have been found in the ruins by Guyanese authorities and was subsequently widely circulated. NBC has declined to reveal how much of the footage they actually have and may be still in possession of, though snippets appear periodically throughout the internet. On the 5th of October 2014, during the 2014 Japanese Grand Prix held at the Suzuka circuit, Formula One driver Jules Bianchi lost control of his vehicle at the Dunlop curve and ended up crashing into a tractor crane. He experienced a diffuse axonal injury as a result of the collision and died in the hospital on the 13th of July, 2015. While amateur fan recordings of the accident are available online, the official footage of the crash has been withheld by Formula One management. On September 11, 2001, a series of 4 coordinated terrorist attacks occurred across the United States. Orchestrated by the extreme Islamic group known as Al-Qaeda, 19 individuals committed 4 hijackings against domestic airliners. 2 of these hijacked airliners then crashed into the north and south towers of the World Trade Center. In or around 2006, a video purportedly began to surface on video sharing websites showing footage taken from the ground around the towers. Entitled LOL Superman, the video in question reportedly captured footage of jumpers impacting the ground at high speed, as well as showing the aftermath of said collisions. The video served the purpose of a shock video, imagery or videos which had the intention to shock or disturb any that came across it, and thus was allegedly reposted around the internet. Since then, likely due to takedowns, the video has eluded those who have attempted to find it. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and if you enjoyed it, please make sure to let me know down in the comments below and subscribe for content similar.